For Willie Nelson, life was never a smooth journey with clear directions, but when he looks back, it almost feels as if every twist, every heartbreak, and every song was leading him toward the same place all along. His story is not one of easy victories or simple success, but of survival shaped by music, hardship, and friendships that arrived at the exact moments he needed them most. Willie's life has been filled with chaos and beauty intertwined, and through it all, the road has been held together by melodies and the quiet strength of people like Kris Kristofferson, whose presence mattered more than the world ever truly understood. Growing up in hard times and early absence. Willie Nelson was born on April 29, 1933, in Abbott, Texas, during the harsh years of the Great Depression, when struggle was not an exception, but the norm. Abbott was a tiny town, and Willie's early life was marked by absence almost immediately. His mother left when he was still a baby, and his father followed not long after, leaving Willie and his sister Bobby to be raised by their grandparents. Nancy and Alfred Nelson offered love, structure, and music, but the world outside their home was unforgiving. Poverty was constant and comfort was scarce. Yet even in that broken beginning, the foundations of Willie's resilience were quietly forming. Music becoming shelter before he could understand it. The Nelson household had very little, and winters were so cold that newspapers were pasted onto the walls for insulation. But within that struggle, Willie found the one thing that would become his lifelong refuge. His grandfather gave him a cheap guitar when he was only 6 years old, and from the moment Willie held it, music became more than a pastime. It became protection, a way to process loneliness, fear, and longing. By the time he was 7, he was already writing songs and performing wherever he could, earning small bits of money that helped support the family while also shaping a future he couldn't yet see. Faith, fear, and the first signs of rebellion. Raised in a deeply religious home, Willie sang gospel music in the Methodist church choir every Sunday, learning harmony and devotion while also wrestling with guilt and curiosity. Outside of church, he was drawn to sounds that felt freer, music his grandmother wouldn't approve of, like Bob Wills and Western swing. That tension between faith and freedom planted the earliest seeds of the outlaw spirit that would later define him. Even as a boy, Willie carried a quiet refusal to be boxed in by rules that didn't feel like his own. Losing his grandfather and growing up too fast. When Willie was still young, his grandfather Alfred died from pneumonia, and the loss struck deeply because Alfred had been his greatest teacher, the man who gave him music, discipline, and strength. After Alfred's death, Willie was forced to grow up quickly, taking on heavier responsibilities, milking cows before school, and working long hours just to survive. That early grief didn't harden him into bitterness, but it did shape his independence, teaching him that nothing in life was guaranteed, and that survival often meant relying on yourself when the world offers no safety net. Searching for stability and finding more setbacks. After high school, Willie briefly joined the U.S. Air Force, hoping for direction and stability, but a serious back injury ended that path almost immediately. Once again, he found himself drifting, returning to music not because it was easy, but because it was the only thing that felt true. He worked radio jobs, recorded songs independently, sold records directly to listeners, and scraped together money however he could. These years taught him early that talent alone was never enough, and that persistence mattered far more than luck. Nashville dreams and the weight of disillusionment. By the late 1950s and early 1960s, Willie arrived in Nashville with big hopes and empty pockets, sleeping in his car and writing songs that would later become classics. Other artists turned his words into massive hits, while Willie remained broke, watching the industry profit from his gift without knowing what to do with him as an artist. Those years were painful, filled with exploitation and frustration, and slowly Willie began to resent a system that valued his songwriting but tried to silence his individuality. Moments at the edge and choosing survival. There were moments when rejection and poverty nearly crushed him, times when the darkness felt heavier than the road ahead. Willie questioned whether life itself was worth continuing, but each time music or friendship intervened just in time. A job offer, a song placement, a helping hand, small lifelines that reminded him survival often depends on the people who believe in you when you no longer believe in yourself. honky-tonk lessons, and finding toughness. Back in Texas, Willie played rough bars where music was loud, tempers were short, and survival required toughness. These were not glamorous nights, but they shaped him, teaching him how to command a room and stand firm in chaos. Those honky-tonk stages mirrored the inner storm he carried, and they sharpened his instincts for an industry that could be just as unforgiving. Walking away from control to find his voice. Even when Willie scored success, he felt suffocated by the polished expectations of record labels that tried to mold him into something he wasn't. Rather than surrender, he chose authenticity over comfort, walking away from security even when it left him broke again. That decision became the doorway to his greatest artistic rebirth, proving that freedom mattered more than approval. Austin and the birth of the outlaw spirit. In the early 1970s, Willie returned to Texas and found something unexpected in Austin, where hippies and cowboys shared the same dance floors. For the first time, he didn't feel like an outsider. Albums like Shotgun Willie and Red-Headed Stranger emerged from that freedom, raw and honest, proving music didn't need polish to be powerful. Success that changed country music forever. When Red-Headed Stranger exploded against all expectations, Willie proved that trusting his instincts mattered more than following trends. That victory didn't just change his career, it changed country music itself, opening doors for artists who didn't fit Nashville's rules and giving birth to the outlaw movement that reshaped the genre. Brotherhood, found on the highway, through collaborations with Waylon Jennings, Johnny Cash, and Kris Kristofferson, Willie found something deeper than fame. He found brotherhood, artists who understood loss, rebellion, and the cost of staying true to yourself. Together, they became the Highwaymen, not a group built on image, but on shared survival. Fame, trouble, and the public spotlight. With fame came scrutiny, legal trouble, and financial disaster, including a devastating tax crisis that stripped Willie of nearly everything he owned. Forced to confront humiliation publicly, he refused to disappear. Instead, he rebuilt creatively, proving again that resilience was his true legacy. Private losses that shaped him. Behind the public battles, Willie faced heartbreak that nearly broke him, including the loss of his son and the collapse of earlier marriages. These pains forced him to confront his own destructive habits, eventually guiding him toward sobriety and a deeper gratitude for those still standing beside him. Annie D'Angelo and the gift of stability. When Willie married Annie D'Angelo, his life steadied in ways it never had before. She became his anchor, setting boundaries, offering accountability, and supporting him unconditionally. Together, they raised a family grounded in honesty, music, and love, giving Willie something rare in his life: stability. Aging without fear and continuing to create. Even as the years passed, Willie refused to retreat quietly. He continued experimenting musically, collaborating across genres, and performing well into his later years, proving creativity does not expire with age, and that reinvention is survival. Kris Kristofferson. The quiet lifeline. Among all Willie's friendships, his bond with Kris Kristofferson ran deepest, built on mutual respect and shared outsider status. Kris was not just a collaborator, but a lifeline whose songwriting and presence helped Willie endure his darkest moments. Regret spoken. Too late after Kris passed away in 2024, Willie finally admitted what he had carried silently for decades. Kris wasn't just a friend, he was a reason Willie survived. That regret of not saying it sooner weighed heavily, reminding everyone that even legends carry unspoken truths. A life measured in survival, not glory. Willie Nelson's story is not about perfection or fame, but about survival, about falling down and getting back up, about music as refuge and friendship as salvation. Even now, his story remains unfinished, still breathing, still singing, still reminding the world that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is simply keep going.